The Jesus Trilogy, The Four Messiahs, Chapter 9. Come in, come in. How are you? Elizabeth hugged Mary. Sit down. You've had a long day. She showed Mary to a chair. Mary's here. Zacharias came from the next room. Hi, Zacharias. It's good to see you again. Mary squeezed his hand, then hugged him. Since his stroke, he can't talk. I'll have to have him write you on his tablet later, but I'm going to do the talking now. You must be starving. Did you eat anything at all today? Elizabeth asked. Mary shook her head. I'm feeling a little sick. I did too up until... Elizabeth stopped, realizing Mary didn't know about her problem. Tired as she was, Mary noticed that Elizabeth appeared heavier than she remembered. Women always noticed those things. I have a little soup left. I'll just heat it up. Will you have some juice? Or would you prefer tea? Juice will be fine, Mary said. She took a sip. She was nauseous, but also very dry. I'm just going to lie over on the couch. Here, let me help you. You must be exhausted. Elizabeth helped Mary up and walked her into the spare bedroom. Come in here, dear. I've got this room all fixed up for you. Thanks, Elizabeth. Maybe I just better say good night. She slid under the bed, kicked off her sandals, and closed her eyes. Elizabeth turned out the lamp. Mary was already breathing heavily. She wondered if Mary was really ill. Poor girl, Elizabeth said to herself. But the girl sure looked pale. If she wasn't better by morning, Elizabeth thought she would call Dr. Luke. Zach, are you going out in the morning to see Amy and Marion? She didn't let him write an answer. They're such a nice old couple. Too bad old Marion has kind of lost his marbles. Elizabeth was blunt as usual. Zacharias just shrugged. Why don't you go in the morning so I can talk to Mary? She leaned over and put her hand on his shoulder. Pretty please, and honey, how would you like to come to bed now? Since the nausea went away, my hormones have really kicked in again, she said. Come on, Daddy. At least I still have all my marbles, he wrote on his tablet. Elizabeth sighed and got up. You're no fun, she said, and stepped back. Do you think Mary could tell? He nodded in the affirmative. I don't know. She pondered, rubbing her very pregnant tummy, 6 months to be exact. She knows. He could only mouth the words, but she understood. Anyway, I'll talk to her in the morning. She kissed him on the forehead. Good night, hon. Good night. He again could only mouth the words. Oh, how he wished he was 20 years younger. He really did enjoy making love to his wife. He dug back into his scrolls and again came upon the passage, He shall be born of a virgin. Maybe the Messiah was his baby. No, Elizabeth was childless, at least up until 6 months ago, but she was no virgin. Who is this Messiah? When will he come to earth? He pondered. Out of Nazareth, the scroll read. Strange, he thought. Mary is from Nazareth, so is Joseph, but so are 5,000 other people, he sighed. 2 plus 2 still didn't add up this night. It wouldn't be long until 2 plus 2 added up to exactly 4. Jed got home, and soon after Josh arrived. It was about 4. Their dad was still at work and wasn't expected for another hour. Joseph did not like the situation, but could do little about it. He and Mary had decided at the last minute that Rachel should stay in Nazareth. He took all the children to school each day and dropped Rachel off at daycare where she was having a ball. He would pick her up each night at 6 and then cook. Joseph got his first paycheck from Barnabas at week's end and immediately called on the old tax collector. He paid off his tax and still had enough money left over to buy food for the week. Mary had given him a shopping list to go by. He was no great cook, but he made do. Working with Barn was great, and now that he was married, things were even better. Well, sort of. They were legal, and they were in love, and the rest would come. And then there was the baby. Some days Joseph's head would just swim. He still couldn't believe it all, but he had never been happier, except possibly the day he and Rachel were married. What a honeymoon they'd had. They rented a room in Jerusalem and spent 3 days of wedded bliss. He wondered what Mary would be like in bed. Her kiss, well, 2 kisses were the warmest and sweetest he had ever known, even better than Rebecca's. Rebecca had been voted the best kisser in the senior class, and one night she convinced Joseph. It was on a date to a play in Nazareth. They sat in the back row and never even saw the play. He shook his head. He must quit his mind-wandering business. He was married now, at least in name. But he was a man, and he had needs. Funny his mind never wandered much after Rachel died. He guessed it was a combination of depression and grief. Mary, in one short 30-second kiss, had changed all that. She had reawakened his maleness, but then A terrible thought hit him. He began to tense up. Sweat came to his forehead. What if Mary is to be a virgin forever? A fear gripped him. No, God wouldn't do that to him. He wouldn't. He couldn't. Tears came to Joseph's huge dark eyes. Then he began to recite to himself, The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. My cup runneth over. His tension eased. The lines on his forehead relaxed. He had always admired his ancestor David. David, a man who so trusted God that he had no fear. David slew lions with his bare hands, and then there was the legend of Goliath. Joseph often wished and even prayed for a faith like that, but realized his weak faith was no match for that of David, and probably never would be. His mind wouldn't stop. The Messiah, his son and God's son, was going to be a king. And what was he going to be king of? Jerusalem, Judea, Rome, or maybe the whole world. He wondered if his son would remember his father Joseph in his kingdom. How would he overthrow the Romans? Was he going to be a great soldier and lead a ragtag Hebrew army to victory after victory, or was God going to strike all the Romans dead in order to have the Messiah Jesus sit on the throne? Would his son's government be in Rome? He supposed it would. He had never been to Rome. He had seen pictures. Joseph wondered what it was like. Must be full of palaces and marble streets. This might be fun. He could build furniture for the Messiah's palace, his son's palace. He thought of all the beautiful wood he would have to work with, all the gold and silver he could use for inlays, handles. This would be great. He would have to get out the family scroll and read about the Messiah, his son. He certainly couldn't ask anyone about it. No one would believe it anyway. They would never believe me, Joseph could be the father of the Messiah. Besides, once the word was out that Mary was carrying his child, they would both be social outcasts. The inevitable talk would be that Joseph had robbed the cradle. Yes, it would be all his fault. Mary, her family, and his family, and the church folk would all look down on them. Good thing he was now working for Barn, because he wouldn't get any more local business. He must trust God, but there was so much he didn't understand. It will come in time, he kept telling himself, but he wasn't so sure. He pulled down the old scroll. There must be something in there telling him how long Mary was to be a virgin. Dad, what? When will Mary come back? Jed asked. I don't know for sure. I expect it'll be a while, Joseph responded. I miss her already. She is so smart and she is so good at my homework, Jed said. I miss her too. We all miss her. But this will give you a chance to work a little harder on your own. Joseph would have to be careful how he put things even to the children. I can help you sometimes too, he offered. Yeah, but Mary is smarter than you. Jed didn't realize the slam, but Joseph knew Jed was right. Oh, how he missed her. Hey, I gotta be average in school myself, Joseph retorted. How'd you do in math? Well, B's and C's. Joseph hedged. He had done okay on some quizzes, but generally ended up with C's in math. Why don't you marry Mary so she can help me all the time, Jed asked. Besides, Rachel needs a mom, he continued. We all do. We'll see. Another hedge. Daddy, Rachel want Mary to be her mommy. Rachel had overheard the conversation from the other room. We'll see. Joseph was sensing that the kids saw more in him and Mary's relationship than father and babysitter. It's time for you to go off to dreamland, Joseph said, whisking his pride and joy up in his arms as he took her off to bed. In her prayer, she asked God to please make Mary her mommy. Tears of joy and lonesomeness came to her father's eyes. Joseph sat down at the table and began to write. Who is that to, Dad? Rarely had Josh seen his father write anything except in his business. Josh came over the table. Joseph covered the Dear Mary he had just written and said in a playful tone, Get out of here. This is private business. Okay, Dad, but seriously, think about it. Mary would be perfect, don't you think? Joseph had no answer. Enough. Get back to your homework. But, Dad, Jed pressed. Enough, I said. Joseph needed to end this discussion. She is perfect, he muttered under his breath. Jed then returned across the room to his homework. What'd you say? Joseph asked, his voice now stern. Nothing.